Okay, not too sure if Restream is taking its time to get going back up. I'm going to try to get things going again. Okay. Yeah. Do you guys hear me? Let's see. Time to get. Okay, there we go. Go. Good. Very interesting. Not too sure what it is. Still having some problems. Okay, my mouse works. I didn't check that. my stream. My computer just decided to go completely foobar on me. So, and then started back up, and then ZBrush is still kind of acting kind of funky on me. So I will try to do my best to finish this off. Not leave everything kind of hanging. So, where was I? Okay, so it seems to be working pretty well. Yeah. All right. Part of the fun of drawing and working with computers. Always something. Always something. So let's go ahead and try to get my thought back on what I'm doing. I don't know. I did have a problem where I have a keyboard that is hooked up underneath my desktop into the back of the computer where I accidentally spilled some water on it the other day. So it died on me, but I didn't rip out my computer to sit there and get it and pull it out. Just added another one. I don't know if that was the problem, and it just decided to try to come back up. But then ZBrush, when I came back in, it was like the keys were beeping at me every single time, so I had to restart twice to get things going. So fun. But can't say life as, a digital artist is always easy. So let me just go ahead and go back to the skin. I'm going to bring up some of those details. I'm just going to start bringing in a little bit more towards like a deeper blue. Yes. And I do not suggest you I had the drink right in front of me because I had some stuff overblocked, and of course I went to go ahead and hit a key and accidentally knocked it, and I thought it was just a little bit of water, but when I moved the keyboard this morning, a lot more water came out. So but always interesting things happen. Just like when you get a Windows update and it screws up everything, you just gotta learn. Jax, you're fine. You're fine. Someone's outside. Across the street. This is his street, by the way. So, hey, how's it going, Pro? Good to see you. So I'm going to go to more of like a splotchy, I don't know necessarily veinage, but I'm going to kind of bring in a little bit of breakdown of this higher skin to kind of give the skin a little bit of different breakup. So it's not quite the smooth, maybe it has some like weird translucent as I build up. Sorry, Jax. What that does is it kind of will give the skin a little bit of more of that alien odd look, something that we're not used to. So almost like an octopus feel. That's what the thing is. Alphas are great, both in when you're sculpting and when you're painting and stuff, just to kind of take a look at it and try to think of different ways of using an alpha. It's almost like using a different brush if you're doing a traditional, like how you might cut it or work. So, and since this is more of like that, kind of like a bone or whatever, I might kind of use some of the design with that, but thin it out towards this. I might bring in to where it picks up some of the translucency from this underneath, because I'm kind of giving that like he's thin, he's very octopus skin kind of thing. He's kind of thin and can kind of manipulate his form or whatever. Again, it's a story. In your design, you could try it, just try to see what kind of works, and if it works, great, continue with it. And because I could always blend these out. I could always kind of take out the skin color. I could always change some of the different feel to it. Add another alpha layer. I'm just trying this. So, and sorry again for I lost quite a few of you. So I appreciate those that kind of like stuck around and kind of waited. I was trying to hurry up and felt bad because I was letting you guys down. But again, if there's any kind of questions, just go ahead and ping me. If anybody is in the Dallas area, there is going to be IDGA, Industry Developers and Game Artists Party. So you might want to kind of look it up. If you look up on the IDGA board, there's going to be information for it. So there's about 300-400 people coming. So it's definitely worth it. I know a lot of you guys are all over the world. So, but I always see like, hey, we're having a party in San Diego. I always get those, so I don't feel so bad, because very few things sometimes happen around here. So, but in case there is anyone kind of local listening that are interested, you should check it out. Okay, so I'm just kind of going a little bit larger with the alpha, and he's becoming a little bit too much of the variation. So I'm just going to kind of continually add a little bit more to break up into smaller little pieces to blend. And this is the area that, you know, like in the back of the head, that's where some of it will kind of come in and be kind of great to so some of that detail. And if this is a little bit too much, like if I'm getting too much of that alpha coming through, like the breakup, and I want to blend out, you could always reduce on your alpha intensity, RGB intensity. That way it just kind of picks up more of the color underneath and reduces it. Because again, I want to have some of that skin breakup. I want to have some of that variation in it, but if it's getting too busy, that's just like I was talking about. If it's within your tertiary details, if there's too much of that information, it becomes overpowering. So I like some of that skin detail, but I want it in specific areas, so I'm going to kind of continuously blend a little bit more and try to pick it up, add some more solid in some of those areas, and then allow some of that skin variation to pick up, like maybe on this chin front, you know, blend towards the front, but have some of that breakup, have some of the breakup here, but not all over. Yeah, the magic snake. There was something. There was a gremlin for sure in my computer. I'm very good at breaking stuff, I got to tell you that. How many layers do you normally do for a creature in production? Quite a bit. I toss a lot of stuff together, so I'll just, if I'm getting bored with a creation or I'm not quite happy with it, then I'll just kind of set it aside and I'll create another layer and start again, and then I'll kind of pull those layers together, Mark, to kind of like sit there and see if there's any happy accidents. And I jump back and forth. I'll rest my eye for a couple days, and I might take a look at it again. Or I've picked up a lot of creatures that I haven't looked at in a long time, and just give myself another shot at it and see what kind of works. Some of the creatures have actually worked from it. I've picked up over, like I did years ago, and I just picked up the design because I'm a little bit stronger, so then I kind of was able to see things and mistakes I was making. So right now I have a lot of darkness to this. I want to kind of lighten this area, these pits and valleys. I want to have some more of this blend into the skin because he's too black right now. So let's pick up the nose area. And I'm going to go ahead and pick up that red, and I'm going to start blending using the same alpha. And I'm going to kind of bring in some more of that translucent warmth and get rid of this dark black that I had on the nose. So just like in real human anatomy, like where we have warmth around specific parts of our bodies, you can use that to kind of blend into your creatures. It doesn't have to, you know, just because it is not human, you can't bring in human aspects to your creatures or things that people will relate to. That's why you could actually do, I mean, I could actually make human eyes, you know what I mean? But as soon as I do that type of human looking eye, then he'll feel odd. Like my next door neighbors, they have one of those Labrapoodles or whatever, and the thing has human eyes. It's freaky because they look so real. You know, it just looks like that should not belong on you. and I do creatures for, you know, for fun a lot, and it just freaks me out. But let's warm up some of these areas, because I had them a little bit too dark. Let's give a little bit more warmth to his lips and his front here. And then I'm going to use this neck separation of the flesh to actually bring in some more of that warmth definitely underneath here. So I've only been really using 2 colors really, so I'm going to probably bring in a third or some variations to kind of blend a little bit more. And I definitely want to probably pop out this neck because he's looking very static with just the 2 colors. And again, if you notice, the different materials is going to change his feel and his look a lot. So, you know, try to find the material that you kind of like. The reason I like this ZBrush Illustrate, it's got a little bit of blue hue to it and the surrounding, and a little bit of a sheen to him as well. So his ears will probably be a little bit towards the warm, and then definitely where if I'm pushing and pulling too much and there's not a lot of things happening, just that's because I had my low level of RGB on it. So you could always just come back and change that. Okay. Let's just make that like maybe that's part of it. Okay. All right. So now that I blended that up pretty well, if it's still like this area is too much, I could always just again hold down Shift, and then I'll blend. So it's blending additive along with color at that point in time. If I want to take off the sculpt, I just want to blend the skin tone, then just make sure you just, when you hold down Shift, you just unclick that one, because usually default is going to be additive and sculpting and RGB along with it. I've been in ZBrush since about 2005, 2004, 2005. So I've been in quite a bit. It's changed over the years. It's phenomenal. I mean, I love the program. I was in Mudbox, part of the beta, and then I got into the ZBrush beta as well, and that's and it just fit me a little bit better. I liked it. I mean, it was a little bit more intensive and difficult to use, but it was so powerful, and they've made it so much easier to use over the years. Now, ZBrush is honestly the most powerful program I've ever used. It's got so many things you can do. It's ridiculous. I tried to show the basics just to kind of have people focus on what they need. You need to just know, I don't need to know everything within this program to be able to be a ZBrush artist. And there's tons of stuff that you could teach me that I would be like, oh, okay, I never knew that. Because I tend to stick to things that I only need to get in and out of quickly. I mean, that's just like there's so many tricks. You can use noises. You can do that. You can create jewelry. You can. I mean, there's a lot of things. Just stick to the basics. Just sculpt. Just have fun. And if you want to kind of like, oh, okay, this might help me. Like I showed you the VDM brushes. Never really used them until just the other day, because I was trying to think of ways that might be helpful to you watching. So I looked into it and I said, okay, I can see a use for them, and because I always usually just kind of kit bash stuff together and just kind of play with it and create things that way. Now that I have that VDM brush, excuse me, I can now just pull that in if I want. I have my skull brushes that I have my anatomy. Like if I click on that, that's my anatomy brush that will come up. If you hit M, then that's going to be the different brushes. So these are some of my skulls. I have a more defined one that actually kind of, they're higher level detailed skulls, and I have hearts and kidneys and different pieces that I've sculpted over the years that I just kind of pull from if I'm kind of like looking to do a zombie or whatever. So now, yeah, and honestly, all the updates. Well, I mean, for the longest time, they were giving me free updates because I was demoing for them or I was doing stuff, and but there was a lot more process for me to kind of go through and get that, and I didn't want to keep bothering my friends. And to be quite honest, this program is so worth its money. It's not even funny. So when I see people kind of complain about, well, it costs this much, I understand as a student some things are pretty difficult to pay for, but this program since its inception, they have never charged for an update. Never, which is phenomenal. And because most, I mean, hell, Max was charging me $3,000 every single year, or different programs every single time I wanted to update, which is ridiculous. But it's totally. If ZBrush charged me every single year, I'd buy it. It's worth it, for sure. All right, so now I'm just kind of going through and I'm just highlighting certain scratches or edges, and I'm kind of trying to blend out some. I'm just using that blue hue, purple, and I'm just kind of pulling these into here. Let me see, what time is it? 3:01. Okay, I'm gonna go pretty soon. So let me hurry up. So I'm just using this to scratch. I'm just using a general standard brush, just painting, trying to find those shapes. I'm not being so precise. I'm drawing in a few. I could actually just go, and if I wanted to do an alpha, and just to bring in those scratches, you can do that way if you want. I mean, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm just doing some edges. Gotta be careful how my hand got a little heavy there. Yeah, it's pretty much free. It's paid for itself 10 times over. So, yep. Yeah, it's a lot of. I know a lot of the different programs are going for the pay per month kind of stuff, and that's great for artists. Because then you can kind of pick up, and then if you don't use it, my problem is that I use a lot of programs for different things. So I think I use about 6 or 7 different programs when I do creations for games or for whatever. So it becomes a little difficult. And I have the problem where I forget the program because I'm stuck in one for so long or whatever. Makes it a little bit difficult to stick with everything. I'm going to smooth out and try to blend out that little section here, just to kind of give that a little bit nicer balance. That's that smooth, or that resting place for your eye. And then I'm going to use this highlighted color to kind of lead your eye around. And I'm going to pick up the edges of the highlights. I can even do some like skin rolls by painting over, and then use this to, again, that translucency trick to kind of blend in some of the variations of skin to make it look like it's kind of, because it's the value. The value is kicking towards you, and it's letting your eye kind of see the secondary. So it's like, I want you to see this highlight first, and then everything else kind of falls through, and so you start slowly seeing that translucent detailing. Okay. You can even highlight a little bit of that octopus skin that I was getting right there. Let it save. Okay. Yeah, Substance is a great one as well. Kind of curious to see what's going to happen with the Adobe purchase, but we'll see. All right, so I kind of lost some of that earlobe / secondary ear in there because of that color. So now I'm just kind of bringing that out, that detail, and some of my skin separation. If you lose it in, if it's there in your sculpt, try to bring it out with color. And I'm just doing some kind of like wavy, because he's alien, he's underwater kind of feel towards him. He's got some of the different things. So that's, because by me doing that octopus skin tone feel to it, and then all of a sudden that kind of, and the color feels, more towards the blue. So that's going to kind of, so the color is changing what he's supposed to be, or what I was anticipating him to be. He is now very, almost feels like Aquaman type of creature that's underneath the sea. Okay. I'm still seeing a lot of I've highlighted a lot of these things. I'm going to kind of slowly do a wash to bring the skin tone up, because I still see a lot of darks. It's patchy to me, so I'm going to try to bring up that skin tone. So I'm doing very light washes and rush, like I'm just washing over top of it, so you see very little, and then it starts to highlight a little bit more. So I'm keeping that detail, but I'm lightening that skin up from the underneath to blend in that little section, so his skin becomes a little bit more opaque. And it doesn't make sense when he's kind of supposed to be translucent and I have more of a dark. So in Photoshop or Painter. Yeah, Photoshop's good. I haven't used Painter in a long time. That's Joanna sounds like she's more towards illustration design. And that's the thing, every single field will have its own bonuses. Like I would not be able to use Painter, even though I did a long time ago. Or you know, and sometimes people just are comfortable in one program over another. Okay, so now that I have that, right now he feels very like the balance is very neutral. It's, even though he's got some colors into him, he's very washed. He's got a lot of white into him. So I need to bring back in some like deeper colors, something that's going to pop a little bit more. I'm going to go back to the head sacks, whatever you want to call them, and I'm bringing in a little bit more of some of that red. I'm just doing the same technique that I was doing with the skin, where I was just I'm just very lightly touching it, just kind of doing some washes. Not anything extra, like I'm not going 100, guys, and I'm not just pushing down on my pen as hard as I can and just going, this is 100% this color. I am using pen pressure along with value and intensity pressure to sit there and just allow colors to mix, to blend. This is the layering that a lot of the traditional painters, like if you see someone do airbrushing over top of masks or anything else, this is sort of what I'm doing with PolyPaint, and I'm slowly bringing up that color to help that warmth. Now at some point in time I might want to get to 100 of this specific color that I'm using, but more likely not. So because I'll probably just, and so what this color also does is it kind of makes this look kind of sickly, because some areas look more healthy by the color rather than the off color here, the brownish. So maybe this thing is a smoker, you know what I mean, it's starting to die, and I could do a black lung or whatever in the corners here. But now that I have that color, I'm going to go ahead and use that into the eyes as well, because the eyes need to pop. Oops. Also helps if I hold down control and I get on the, you know, the area where I'm supposed to go. So I'm just painting in this little section here to add some more of that color and change it up. And then I'm going to change the translucency as well too. What biological functions does that? I don't know. Maybe pisses through its nose. I don't know. And that's its bladder. I mean, that's the thing. Is just like I don't know. I'm just having fun with it, and that's what I was just making stuff up. It's, you know, to me, a lot of the art, you kind of, I mean, I have trouble coming up with my names of my creatures more than I have coming up with creatures, just because it's like, it seems like some feel like it needs to be called to certain things or have a function. I don't know. I was looking for the shapes, and I was like saying if it was going to have its lungs on top or whatever, and I remember in my cerebrum, I took my hearts that I made and I just threw them as like the outside of the lungs, and they just fit and they looked okay. And then, you know, so that's just part of it. You can actually just make up whatever you want and then create the story after. It's great if you have a, I mean, I was kind of riffing off of that story or whatever. I was just kind of saying these are ball sacks, I'm just kind of playing off with them. That helps, but no, I have no clue what to call this guy. So by bringing in some of that red into these little underneath, I'm helping that blackness. That was kind of like where it was just looking odd, and I'm going to bring in some of that translucency again to the skin, and definitely into the areas to help separate warmer, like this is the skin underneath, or so it's almost kind of like the lips and stuff are pursed and separated, like definitely underneath here. Pomo, I had no clue what that meant. So maybe I might actually make this little cheek part a little bit more towards that sack and show, and once I do this and I have that separation from the skin, it almost becomes like another breathing sack or whatever, you know, it's kind of, you know, so he's separated in his forms. Or you can even say underneath here, it's a little bit more towards the red, you know, to pop out that little section. And then I could actually go and separate out that skin on layers, or you know, do some like thicker skin separation, so this guy's just kind of like popping through the skin all over the place, you know, he's having layers of thin and thick all over. I might have to do a little bit more towards the red here to kind of look a little bit more translucent. I don't know, maybe not. But I will bring in the warmth a little bit here. So maybe this becomes another type of sack. So his eardrum. And then this will become a little bit warmer for his neck to separate out his skin. Again, just try it. See if it works. And if it doesn't work, I'm using pinch. I'm going to pull this in just a little bit more. I'm using my pinch brush to kind of tighten up certain areas. So even though it's already kind of painted, like I can still go back into my sculpt and play with some of those shapes to see what's going to work or not. Still not a big fan of that little in and out. So now I'm going back into my sculpt to kind of separate. I'm going to make it kind of like a tear duct skin thing because it just, this area is bothering me still. Okay. There we go. It feels at least a little bit better to me. If I want to highlight this edge, I'm back in my RGB and I'm just going to go up. And I'm just going to kind of tighten up, highlight up some of that little sections and break it up. And I'm going to blend. Give it a second. I think I'm going to make it more of a solid nose. Okay. I'm back in color. So I jump around a lot, kind of taking a look at it. Let me see. Yeah, headlong sound awesome. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. When you're doing this, just make it up. And then just kind of, you know, and we're going to do some of the highlight on it. But now I'm just added some veinage. And again, once you do these, like if I was going to highlight some of the veins that I did, I'm just slightly going over top with that color. Okay. And then it's too much, just I'm blending it back into it. So, okay, now the one thing I forgot to do is I didn't add a lot of alpha detail into the sculpt. So I'm kind of losing that. So I'm going to go back, because I usually kind of add in some kind of alpha. So let me just go and I'm going to bring some skin variations into this really quickly. I've got to get out of RGB and into my intensity. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. And I'm going to kind of make sure I'm on the right label. Now this right here is going to break down because I've got that such pulled, where it's going to work into better areas. And here I'll show you, I'll turn off my color. Let me go back into my sculpt and onto my coloration. So it's like that way right there. I'm just trying to add a little bit kind of some definition to my skin. I had it from the original sculpt, from the scan that I started with, but let's go ahead and go back to color, because I'm going to use that to kind of add a little bit of breakup sculpturally to the skin, to also help separate it from the translucent. But I pulled this thing so far. I mean, I've really kind of distorted this sucker, so it really is not going to be as good at details. This is where I would actually go back into my sculpt, re-ZBrush it, kind of change, bring up some variation to the skin, you know, so I can actually bring in those skin details, and because it's looking very. So this got really destroyed. Now on this should actually be better. So if I add skin alpha to that, if you can see right there, that kind of just helps some of the skin. It feels like there's some push and pull, some variation to it. And this is where you can change your alphas up and try to find something that might be a little bit more alien snake-like, or whatever we can try. So this right there, that alpha just kind of makes it like, all right, it's a lung nutsack with weird kind of stuff to it. Hey Sirmoid, thanks man. I've been using ZBrush since about 2005, so quite a bit of years. Love it. It's definitely a great program. I'm going to actually inverse this alpha. I'm going to try to make it a little bit more towards, it's got some of the POC out, because the alpha is set to in, so it goes inwards. So I'm going to make it feel like it's going, has a little bit of weird skin detailing. In certain areas, and so some I'm just kind of pushing and pulling. And what that does is just helps me give some textural detail that the light can pick up and show, and then when I do some kind of like key shot or something to actually render it out, that's going to pick out that detail pretty well. If there's some areas that you're like, you know what, I want to add, you know, more specific alpha punches or whatever, then you can kind of, like if I want to bring some bubbles, you can use alphas like that, or you can use a couple different ones to kind of, you know, however you want to do it. But actually adding a few of those different alpha hits or details is going to kind of make your life a little bit easier when you're, you know, coloring and texturing and stuff like that. It just kind of, like these right here, if I, you know, that's a little bit too much, right? But I need to probably go back into the skin and give, I'm going to open up some face pores. This is from like Rick Baker's alphas, or the skin pores if you do a lot of detail. So what that does is it allows me to kind of add some pores. Yeah, this got destroyed. So that means it's way too much. If you look at, turn on the frame, you can actually see how bad those polys have been pushed and pulled. So areas like this that are closer are going to be more successful for me to be able to do any kind of alpha detail. So I want to kind of redo this, you know, make a clone, make a copy. One thing I'm afraid of, it's not too high, but let me do it really quickly to see if it kind of works. So if I have a clone base, I'm just going to go ahead and make a duplicate of this sucker. I'm going to go geometry. I'm just going to go lower res. I'm just going to delete. Oh, let me go higher. Go to my layers. I'm going to bake all. Okay. I'm going to go down a few layers I don't need. Delete. I'm going to Dynamesh. I don't need something really high in my Dynamesh. I'm just going to go to 512. Dynamesh this sucker. Okay, it's Dynameshed. You can check it by that. Okay, and then we're going to go to ZRemesher. Okay. And turn off my this. Now this one will have the PolyPaint on it. This is not going to. This is my Dynameshed version right here. And then I'm just going to go to my ZRemesher. It's weird that it doesn't. I'm going to do adaptive, turn off half. Let's go to 1. Somehow it was on half for some reason. Make sure your symmetry's on, and then I'm just going to go and say ZBrush, and it's going to take a minute. Hopefully capture a lot of that detail. Sometimes when you do the ZBrush, there's going to be areas that are going to be lost. So be aware that you might just have to go up and level. It just means that you haven't given enough polys to that specific ZBrush that makes it a little bit better for it. So just go up and, like, you know, instead of 1, go to like 2 or 3, because it's going to take it from 1 million polys down to 6,140. So if you take a look, it's kind of cleaned it up, and what it does a great job of just kind of cleaning up. Now there's a few areas, like right here, I don't really dig this little X where it's not down the middle. You could just hit ZBrush again and it will do a better cleanup, but if you notice, it lost a lot of those details. Now sometimes that will be difficult for it to project onto, because what I'm going to do next is turn this on and make sure PolyPaint is on. This one is at 3 million, this one is at 6,000, so I'm going to divide. Let me turn off this, and I'm just going to say project and say project all. Now usually the default, always yes. Okay, I'm going to go up again, project all. Now if you're wondering if it's working, you got to turn on your PolyPaint section here. For some reason, let's do this. It's kind of, I'm going to go my flat color, fill the object, and then I'm going to go back to my thing, and it's looking like it was not picking up its material color. That is weird. So what's happening is looking like it's not picking up any of my materials, which is very odd. Straight material, color, fill object. Okay. So now if I go to a different color, there we go. Okay. So I think what was happening before is that I just didn't, there was some kind of material that was not quite there. So I should be able to have, oh, it's doing it again. Very weird. Missing it. Yeah, Pro brought up a good thing. You can hold down Alt to have an alternative. Yeah, and you can go to ZModeler and connect those two dots if you want to. MRGB, I don't know. This is weird because it should be allowing me. I'm picking up the PolyPaint. I'm not picking up the material hit of that sucker. I don't know what's wrong with it. So you should be able to see the object, and when you go over top of your materials, you see that little window that pops up? This is how it should look. So you have your material, if I click on the correct one, okay, and if I had this, when you go over your material, you'll see that material change up into that little window. So if I go to gold here, it's going to be the gold with my PolyPaint. And for some reason, okay, it's just not liking that. So let me try this. I'm going to go flat color one more time, or MRGB, and I think because I painted that initially, I'm going to paint it again, turn off my Z additive. So I think because this thing got goofed up, or this initial piece has some issues with it, that it's kind of translating over top of that way. Okay, and let me just go back to, just right now, I'm going to not worry about the PolyPaint. I'm just going to worry about getting some of the projected details. And this is why I sometimes don't do it. It takes a little bit of time depending on how many polys you're projecting and how well it's going to project. You can sit there and kind of cause some issues, or it takes a little bit of time. So hopefully it will move along here. There it goes. That was a good jump. There we go. So now when I have this, if I turn on the color, there's no color to it. Okay, I have my material hits. I can change my materials. So let's try this one more time. I'm going to make a duplicate of this sucker. Turn this off. Turn that back on. Turn off my solo. And I'm going to just project the RGB at 100%. Project. And see if it works. And I could have actually gone down. To get the PolyPaint, I really didn't need to be at the highest level. That is just something that, okay. Yep. Very weird. So I'm going to do something where I'm going to try a trick. I'm going to go to ZProject. I'm going to turn off my additive, and I'm just going to PolyPaint. And let's see. Okay. And so what I'm doing now is I'm skipping around whatever was happening with the projection. Something down in here which didn't make sense, didn't really like that, so I'm just going to use my ZProject to get around whatever that issue was. Now with ZProject you've got to be very careful that if you use your Z additive, depending on your area, it's going to take everything and flatten it, so you'll have things that just jump across. It becomes very difficult. So also if I have symmetry on, it's going to grab on both sides. So for ZProject, just go ahead and turn off symmetry and just try to grab the color from its own side. So and so because depending on the area or the direction that I'm facing the camera, that's how the ZProject will grab. So it kind of blends things together. So if I want to just grab exactly what this is, make sure it's pointing towards the camera and try to grab, because otherwise it's going to blend. Does, you know, it's kind of blending a lot of different things. It's close enough, I think. So if you can see, as I turn the camera, if I'm not straight on, it kind of changes it. Okay, so now let's go back to here. I'm going to inset this new piece, this base one. Hide this sucker. Okay, let's go ahead and save that sucker really quickly. Yes, ZProject is great. It just, like I said, if I wanted to sit there and project the details of, you know, one area to another, especially when you kind of project is giving you some issues. But ZProject, if you turn it, if you grab the back end, it's just going to flatten everything. So the one side will look great, and you turn to the other side, and it's all crap because it's just been pushed and pulled. Okay, so now that I've done that, I can then go to my alphas, and then I can go and grab that alpha that I wanted. And so when I go into my details, I now will have see the, I'm going to divide one more time. Now I was at a lower level, now I'm higher level than the previous one, so my skin alphas and everything else will be a lot more detailed. So now everything's kind of a lot nicer, so I can add some of those pores, or I can go back and just bring in some of those details. If I hold down Alt, it's going to change. If I want to bring in that elephant skin now, that elephant skin to my detail is going to work a lot better. We can smooth that out. So as you can kind of see, and it depends. I mean, every single alpha, sometimes alphas will not, you know, be great. You got to make sure that you kind of find the right one. It can be a texture. So this is actually coming in as gray, but this is actually a colored texture as well. So if I wanted to sit there and bring in skin color tone with it, I can sit there and go to my texture, and then I can actually import in that same, you know, elephant skin texture right there. So when I pull up my color, as long as I have my RGB on with it, I will be able to bring in color of that texture along with that skin. So now, this is great. But you got to be kind of careful of, you know, do I want it to, is it going to help, or is it going to kind of wipe out a lot of my details. So you can do quite a bit. I'm actually going to use both of it. Doesn't seem to be doing too bad. I'm going to drop my intensity down just a little bit to blend. Okay, so there's a couple different tricks that you can use, but as you can see, that skin detail to break up, even though he's kind of a water creature, even though he's kind of wet, it's adding that extra little light variation that when I turn it and the material hits it, this is going to work excellent when I render it as well. You're going to see all that detail. It's going to bring in a lot more life and realism, even though this creature is kind of not real. It will help its believability, or so especially like here on the back of the skin where this is a little bit larger, than that way I can play with the skin variation, direction, and I'm getting that color along with it. Now my Z additive is different from my RGB, so what I'm doing on here, by reducing the RGB down, I'm taking less of the texture color, and my Z additive is going to stay the same. So whatever you do on this side is just taking out the color. So if I want to go back up to 100 and say I want more of this to be gray from the skin color in the back, I can then bring in more of that color with it, because it's rougher skin in the back maybe, or whatever. It's kind of something. But as it gets closer to here, I want to see less, because I wanted to keep some of that PolyPaint, and so I'm just pulling more from some of those details from there. And I'm not being too concerned about how it's looking. I'm just kind of jotting this down really quickly, because I got to get going here pretty soon. But that way, this gives a lot more story to the character, the skin, his age. I could use it to separate out. I definitely want to bring in some extra crow skin details, but where it hits this little, area of flesh on the inside, I'm going to be very careful. Now you could also do this where if I want to, I'm going to mask out, so then I can skin over top, not really worry about it, and that way that area is going to be smooth no matter what, because the mask is protecting it. Is there any questions? Okay, I think I'm pretty close. So like here, this little area, if I'm coming in here, I want this to be a little bit smooth. These are my transitions of skin blends or whatever. That way I can then use that to come over with larger skin folds, and then that way it's kind of, protected a lot of that skin underneath. I could always just go ahead. Here's the Z add right here. That's what got kind of screwed off on that one. It looks fine, where the other side doesn't. So let me, so you can see there's some spots I missed in the color. Let me finish off the back. And same done. So that makes a big difference to the color. I'm going to go back to my standard alpha off, texture off, just so I can sit there and just grab this color and clean up any kind of areas that I missed on the Z projection. So let's tighten that up. Now, this is not wiping out any of the Z detail I did. It's just kind of blending out some of those areas that I had. So, okay, let me see, my perspective is back to 50. I meant to do 35. So again, the whatever detail, whatever, also your draw, if I say align to object, that way it, no matter its perspective, it's going to kind of keep your object pinpointed. Local symmetry, wherever I sit there and I click, is going to change its pivot. So just to let you guys know that that is also usually what I have on here. So, okay. So again, I think are done. Anyway, he kind of turned out. I'm sorry about the hassle. I really appreciate you guys jumping back in, because that was pretty much was done. How much post-production do you do for presentation? pretty much what I would do if I was going to create this character or some of the different designs, I would show a whole bunch of different thought processes as a sheet. And then if I had a full character, I would definitely take it from a T-pose, and I would actually pose it into a couple different scenes, like its environment, like I did for the last couple episodes. Because what you're trying to do is just help the client see your vision, and the more you give, the better. If you don't like something, don't put it in, because then they will usually jump onto that one. It's kind of a weird little thing. Whatever you don't like the most, they'll like the most. It's kind of, so you need to kind of say to yourself what's working, what's not. Like if I'm not really happy with the way that these fins are kind of working, you know, if I come back in here and I say, you know, I need to, before I turn this in, I need to play with, you know, again, let me do another layer, and I say to myself, that's really not working. Do I want it to be where these are more down? Oh, I was going to say, what's going on? All right, if I want these more down and more of a protective, or maybe it's kind of starting to slip back, you know, does that work? Do I like that better to make it more kind of squid-like? And maybe I have these as where this becomes a little bit more like a tentacle. You know, before I turn that into a client, I need to sit there and make sure that I'm satisfied with it, that it's working for me. Now that I have this fleshed out, you know, with skin color, and I brought in some of that octopus that changes some of the direction of the character, changes it for me, I might want to take a look and try a couple different snapshots. Now the cool thing with this is once I have something I'm like, okay, I like that, you can also, with your designs, is what I would actually, let me see, let me finish this out a little bit more. Kind of want to probably make this a little bit more to where it kind of comes in. So now, I mean, you got me, I did some sculpt this one, so it's more of the skin. And it's more, honestly, like a brain type thing. It's a bit more mean. Okay. So if I like that character, and it's kind of changed, right? And you say, all right, that's a design. Then you could also just quickly just go ahead and say merge visible, and it will snapshot everything that you have in that. I did this on purpose. I'm sure some of you guys have come across where you're all of a sudden like, why is that black? What's going on? I can't figure that out. And that is because within your brush on your mode here, this new piece, this layer, okay, oops, is on this layer. This layer is still in recording mode, okay? So you want to make sure you turn off that recording mode, okay? So I went from there to there. So if I'm debating these two characters and I'm like, I don't know which one's going to work, then you're just going to go up the higher level and you're just going to say merge visible. It's going to snapshot those characters, and then you can see right there it's going to give you this merged character, and then you can sit there and say, do I like that design? Or do I want to sit there and go back off where I take this off and I say, let me just update, and then I say, you know, merge this character, and then you can take these two characters, Jax, you're fine, okay, and let's just say you move it, okay, and then you can kind of debate which character you like. So you could try out a lot of different stuff like that. So yeah, it's a quick way to kind of test it out, and you can go, I like that one. I mean, because as you can see right now, by doing these two different designs, it's really changed. You know, which one do I like the best? You have the two characters you can rotate around now, and you can actually see the design. That's why I like doing the merged, because if I did a snapshot, which is Control S, it just snaps out, it puts it to the background, and you can't rotate around it. This is good, so now I can actually sit there and debate and see what's working, what's not. Different characters that are kind of, you know, then I can kind of click and go, you know what? I like some of that from the other one, but I want to make him a little bit less mean, a little bit more inquisitive, change this up a little bit, you know, and you can kind of, and it's all merged. You can, again, separate it if you want, but then you're able to play around with it. Oops. No, it's doing it again. Okay. So, Don't give up on me now. Tool, save as. Let me go ahead and save. So I think on that note, I'm going to let you guys go and save before it kind of totally messes up on me. So, but I hope that helps. I hope that helps. I hope you guys had a good time, and I appreciate it. I'll be back on in a couple weeks, so kind of keep an eye on it. And if you have any questions, drop me a line. You can drop me a line through my, website, Instagram, whatever you kind of want. So just let me know. All right. I hope that helps. Appreciate it, guys. Before my computer totally takes a dump again. And I hope to hear from you. So, all right. Have a good one. Happy Friday and weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.